Welcome, everyone, and thank you, everybody here, for joining us today. Shout out to the Twitch audience. We are live now, and thank you to Carlos, Projectivity, and Jason for live streaming today's talk. This is the fourth MMC22 Makers Talk panel, which features the creative and talented dev teams from the Metaverse Maker Competition sharing their work and process. Today, we're featuring work from two teams. First, we have Nordwick and Jackson from Team Hardlight. They're the team behind H&L Ironworks, which won Best Game World from a large team. And following them, we have Ikani and Yeyinde, who will talk about their Plex player. After each presentation, we'll invite both teams to the stage for a Q&A. You have a question. If you have a question, sorry about that, please set your audio to broadcast so that our live stream can hear your audio more clearly. I'm Tosca, aka Nanotopia, and let's begin with Nordwick and Jackson sharing their work, H&L Ironworks.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone, to our talk about H&L Ironworks. My name is Jackson, and yeah, let's start. For those of you who do not know what H&L Ironworks is, it's a smithing game where you can make your own custom sword, or you can smith it rather, and then customize it to your liking. So first, let me introduce to you the most awesome people who actually made this whole project a possibility, which is of course Nordwick over here, our team leader, myself of course, Nickel, Chris Blackpaw, Dark Sugar, Mahatma, Brodak, Ardis, Sarufi, and Banana9. A lot of our team are actually here present and watching, so thank you for listening. So how did we actually pull all of this off in the span of just a single month? Well, we started by planning as you usually should do. First off, Nordwick proposed to us the idea of making a smithing game. And then we just started brainstorming and things we wanted to implement actually. But as brainstorming sessions usually go, you have more ideas than you can usually actually implement. So we categorized them a little bit. So we first decided on what are our must-haves, like the core features that we actually want in the game, which is of course like we need a sword that you can smith, we need an anvil, we need a hammer, we need a forge. But we also had some features that we were like, we don't know if we have the time, so we kind of put them away for now and dealt with them later. Those were our maybes. And we also had some probably no time features like a gathering mechanic where you would have needed to gather some ingredients before you could actually start smithing your sword. But we needed to decide on what is actually doable and cut it down rather harshly to only a small subset of things that we actually made in the end. And to keep track of all of this, we actually made a Trello board, which is a kind of a web app where everyone can collaborate and create some little nodes and attach them to people and put them into lanes like what is currently being done, what is planned, and what is already finished, and so on. And after we kind of got our rough ideas done, we started splitting up the work between people. And we not just like handed out the tasks or something, like people have their own interests, and some people wanted to do some things that they didn't do before, like Nordwick, for example, usually does a lot of logics work in years, but he wanted to do a bit more 3D modeling, so he made actually a lot of the 3D models in our game. And after planning comes the fun part, as we usually call it work in our team, because you just need to get stuff done. But how did we do that? Well, everyone just worked when they had time, because like all of us like had jobs or are at university and just have other chores to do all around. So a lot of us just worked in the afternoon after work and spent a lot of the free time actually getting this project together. We also tried to work mostly in a news session, although we also like hung out on Discord here and there to communicate. And we did a lot of stuff directly in news and also in public. So we could actually already playtest what we made while we were actively developing did. So that was pretty cool and a huge part of our process. We also did a frequent progress meetings. So while we were working, like sometimes we were like, well, what needs to be done? So we kind of gathered most of the people that were currently present and said together, like, this needs to be done and this is already finished. And hey, can you do this and that? So like kind of a daily stand-up thingy. Also, what we try to do is to keep all the systems that we made as modular as possible. So nothing is linked directly and we can just save only one part, like for example the furnace. You can just save it to your inventory, spawn it in another place, and it should work. That was the entire goal, because that way we could ensure that if we make changes somewhere, we can just replace it if something breaks or if we make some wrong decisions or something in the end. So everything just communicates via dynamic variables and dynamic impulses to get that working. That also enables us to actually smith multiple swords at the same time in a session. So like multiple people can hammer on a single sword at the same time, which is pretty cool. Another big part of our development process was using Ukilop's red print for managing logics, which helped a lot because it helped us organize our different logics red prints in an organized manner. And you could just pull them out anywhere and move them around so you don't clutter the world too much, which is pretty cool. So huge shout out to Ukilop and thanks for making the red print. So what was our progress in the end? Like how did we start and actually finish everything? As I already told you, like first we started gathering ideas, finding and creating concept art. And after we had most of that done, we actually started blocking out the world. So we drew in 3D, in Neos, like drew the basic shape of the building. Then we started making some rough models without textures and putting into the session and seeing how everything looked like and how it would work out. Then we actually put in some blocks, as you can see here, with some labels on them where like most of the stuff should go, cabinet Swot stuff or workbench and so on. Also, what we started out pretty early was creating the Swot template, because the Swot, of course, is the main ingredient in the whole game. So this, for example, was one of the first templates that we actually created. And in the end, we made it so that you can just replace the mesh and it would work with all of them. So we have one template for the sword, replace the mesh, and then you can smith it. And after the Swot template was in a usable state, then we could actually start implementing all the other systems, because they, of course, depended on the sword to actually work. And as I already said, we did playtesting all the way. Like nearly from day zero, we kept the session public. People were joining in, and we were just asking them, hey, we're making a smithing game. Do you want to try out how to smith a sword? Even though most of it wasn't finished yet, we just gave them a raw sword and like, yeah, try if you can hit it on the anvil and if it works and if it feels all right. And the cool part about that is that you can just make adjustments on the fly. So like people are there and they're like, nah, this kind of feels a bit wonky, and then you just open a red print, change some values, and then you can try it again and give your feedback on that. So also a shout out here to all the people who actually joined us and playtested, because like without you, this wouldn't have been possible. And in the end, we of course needed to put everything together. We had all the Swiss systems working independently of each other. So we put them in the world, tried everything out, and smoothed every rough edge that we could find in the last week, and polished the whole world. So now that I've bored you to no end probably, let's get a bit more moving. And how does it work actually? Because we're Neos, we can just do this live. First off, we want to show you a short video, because like Henry, our dragon, doesn't want to move. So we kinda had to make a video of him smelting our iron. Let's start. So first off, when you go into the smithy, you just need to decide on which blade you actually want to create. This is also where the modularity comes into place, because all of those molds contain the actual meshes that you then get on the sword template. After that, you need to decide on an ingot color that you put on top of the furnace. And Henry is always hungry, so you need to give him some cookies so he actually works for you. After you fed him enough, then he starts smelting your iron. Also have some cookies here. And if that is done and the mold is cooked, it breaks down. And don't forget to give him head pads. And after that, you need to make sure that you don't touch the hot metal with your hands because you will burn yourself. So now, I actually need some tongs to be able to show you. We have some tongs, Nordwick. Ah, yeah, there you go. So now let me show you how this actually works. First off, after you smelted ingot into your actual raw sword, you need to put it into a furnace to actually heat it up again. Then you can pull this crank, which internally heats up the furnace, and then it takes a while longer till the actual blade starts to heat up. So this should take a few seconds, and when it starts to glow bright yellow, then it is hot enough to actually smith. Now I need the hammer. Nope, wrong. Thank you. Then you need to go to the anvil and you can just hammer it. Also, cool thing about that is that the sword actually detects if it's on the anvil. So if I just put it over here and try to hit it, it just does not work at all. We actually need to keep hitting it on the anvil. And you can see that it gets longer and the shapes will gradually start to expand till it reaches its desired form. But that will probably take a while too long, so I'll just continue on. So after you smithed your sword to the desired shape, you actually need to quench it, so it's hardened. For that, you actually need to heat it up once more. Let's do that real quick. So this should be good enough. And then you put it into the quenching barrel. There you have it. Now it's properly quenched. Now I don't need the tongs anymore because old now. And after you've quenched it, you can actually grind it on the grindstone to polish it up and to sharpen the edge, of course. Fun fact about that is that the whole system on the grindstone does not depend on any colliders or anything else. It only is math, and that is pretty cool in my opinion. So as you can see, it's getting more shiny, and now it's ready. After that, you can assemble it. Like a huge part for us was that you are able to customize your sword. So in the world, you can find all bits and pieces like different hand guards, different pommels, and different grips. So you just take them and put them on the sword. And I'll grab a pommel from over here. Then you just put your sword together. And you can actually also change the color of most things on it. Like, for example, I can pick a crossguard color. Let's use red for that. And for the grip color, let's use a green. To make it look a bit funky. The pommel color could be black, for example. Black and red is always a good combination. And after you finish that, you can still change parts if you desire. But after you're actually done, you just grab the glue, because that's how it works. And you just pour it over the sword. And there you have it. The finished sword. Thank you. And after you're done smithing your sword and finishing up, you can actually test it on our little test dummy here. So if you hit it, I don't know if you can see it, but it like spawns those numbers, which are actually the damage you're doing to the dummy. And depending on how well you smithed your sword, the number actually gets higher and the color changes of those numbers. So this was like one of the features that we made so you actually can do stuff with the sword afterwards. Yeah, so that's basically it for smithing the sword. Do you have the tutorials, Nordwick?
Oh, yeah.
And because all of that is pretty complicated, we decided on making a system that enabled us to show people how all of this process should work or how it's intended to be used. So we kind of made those pictograms which also fit into our narrative, because like the story is the smith is away, you're his apprentice, and you need to smith some swords, and he left you these notes. So we can look for those a bit. The first one is for example for the smelter. You need to put a mold in there and an ingot. Then you need to feed the dragon so it actually melts your ingot into the mold. And then you need to heat up the sword and smith it and so on. So we made one for each step, or sometimes even two when it's more complicated. So people can actually find their way around it. But the tutorials can also be disabled if you do not want to see them at all. So yeah, that is basically all of us, I guess. So thank you for your attention.
That is absolutely amazing. Thank you. Can we give a great shout out and applause here? Yeah. Thank you. I want to try making a sword. Wow. So
Also,
thank you. Yeah. Did you have something else you wanted to say? Oh, so I believe we wait until the end for the Q&A.
Okay.
But I don't know. Does anybody have any immediate question? A Twitch viewer said, "Hooray for sharp objects!" So yeah,
we can do the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you, Team Hardlight.
Thank you for
That
listening.
is amazing. Amazing work. Wow. So next I would like to invite Ikani and Yeyinde to the stage to share their work, Plex Player. Woohoo!
All right. Wow, their presentation was really good. Give me just a moment. Let me pull out the panel here. And ta-da! And that's our talk. Now, so this project started out as most projects do in Neos, for having a need for something that didn't exist in game yet, or at least nothing we could find. So we ended up starting our research at the beginning of the month of taking a look at what would be involved with making Plex work within Neos for multiple users. For those who are not aware, Plex is a open source media server. It allows you to organize, gather various media information, and present and play through any of your media collection, be it movies, TV shows, that sort of thing. So we wanted to be able to bring that into Neos. One of the major hurdles we ran into is that Plex has a very limited API, and its only output is XML. So we set a goal of not requiring any outside services to be able to manage it. All you needed was your Plex player, and any processing would have to happen within Neos. So it involved writing an XML parser in Logix, which I highly don't recommend. It's it's kind of a pain, and to be honest, I would probably remove the no external services limitation for the if we were to redo this panel. Let's see. We had probably, I want to say, 30 or 40 revisions that we went through as we went through the process of building this panel. And while I was going through and doing the logics and working out the API limitations, Yeyinde was going over UIX and all of the visual elements of the panel. Between the two of us, actually neither of us had really worked on either of these areas very heavily. I had done some logics, but not too much. So this was actually a very good learning process as well, just to try and figure everything out. As the other team mentioned, red prints are fantastic, and we definitely made heavy use of that, as well as dynamic variables and dynamic impulses to try and keep things modular. We did have a large amount of help from Ukulop as well. Another part of the project was that we, at the time, Ukulop was testing Redprint 1.4. So as we were going through the process of building this project, we were also working with him and providing feedback on how the new version of Redprint was working, trying out different bug fixes and such. So it was a lot of fun. There was a question of if a Plex panel is legal, a Plex server is legal, and it is an open source server that you can provide any content you want to it. So it is ultimately up to you that you own that content before you put it in there. So for the purposes of our demonstration, I have a Plex server with public domain content on it, both to keep the panel legal and to also demonstrate that you can use with public domain content. So I'll just start the demo here. Normally it would start with the Plex connection, which we already have filled in, and then a security token. In the MMC world, we gave instructions for how to get this security token, and that just allows the panel to authenticate to Plex. So if we connect, we will get a list of all of the various categories that are available, and we'll select movies, and it will sit here and happily scan through and populate the movies that are available. So you end up with various thumbnails. I went for the Blender movies, as those are all open source. They're all fantastic. I'll pick one at random here. And Plex allows you to pull content rating, tags, duration, director, actors, all that information, and then gives you several play options.
Normally there would be a big piece of art right here, but yep, the Plex server doesn't seem to want to give that right now.
Yeah, it's
curse of
there's still a few
demonstrations.
bugs in it, of course. Yeah, so and then I can go. Oh, this is going to be the one that breaks, of course. like I said, there's still a few bugs, but I'm just waiting for it to time out here. Try that again. All right, so for TV shows, I just grabbed a couple of YouTube series that I enjoy. And I'll actually, you can go into the different series they have. And I'll hit play on this briefly. Just so you can see the player. Yeyinde did a fantastic job on the... Yeyinde did a fantastic job on the panel. I'm going to pause it here. The volume control is local per user. All of the seek and everything works just fine. And we've actually had very little audio desync, which is kind of a common thing with longer videos in Neos. So that's actually worked really well. And then, of course, the third category is music, which we loaded it with a bunch of public domain, and it's not going to load again, of course.
More bugs to fix out.
Yeah. Try it again. Come on, load. There you go. Oh yeah, now it's going to not display the spinner, of course. But you can pick any music here. This is just going to...
It'll give us a sort of a playlist view of all the tracks in an album.
I totally picked this at random, so... Yeah. That is very Bach, yes. So yeah, that's essentially the panel. Did you want to talk about anything else on the...
One thing that the panel does is that it will remember its own TV show.
Oh, remember position.
Yeah, it will remember our positions and things for the videos that we last saw. So if we decide to go back, it should.
Yeah, so we'll jump to there. Go back. And then if you go back into it here.
Yep.
Yeah. It will resume where you left off.
Yep.
That's not good.
Cool. I'm trying to think if there's any other details we wanted to go over on this. I think that's pretty much it as far as what we did with the panel.
Wow, excellent. So, yeah, well, that's it. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. Very, very cool. So, okay, well, thank you, everyone. And I would like to invite both teams now back up to the stage, and we can begin our question and answer session. So for those of you watching on Twitch, please just just type in your question into the chat. I'll see them here. And for the people in the audience, if any questions, please raise your paw, wing, or tentacle, and I can call on you. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. In the blue in front.
Guys, do you have a picture of the spaghetti code that had to go into this player? I would love to see that, but I don't think you can erase it because we would probably crash.
Oh, okay. So, I don't believe we have any existing photos of it. I am very tempted to, that was actually one of the things I was thinking about doing, and yeah, it's about 1,000 nodes of logics across
Yep.
7
I imagine.
red print panels.
Yeah.
Just ask them to go into
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. Excuse me just for a second. So anyone asking questions here in the audience, please put your mic in broadcast mode so everyone can hear and people can hear in the Twitch.
Should I repeat?
Yes, please.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, do you have any picture of the spaghetti code that got into the player? Because I cannot imagine the amount of it, because it must have been humongous.
Unfortunately, we don't. No problem. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any photos. I am happy to get photos to anyone who wishes after the presentation, though. And the player itself is open source. So if you go to our MMC world, you can save a copy of the player, and you are more than welcome to use red print to unpack the logics, and yes, please go over it, critique it, whatever you like.
We assume
It's
no
pretty much black magic to me.
liability. We assume no
That's fantastic.
liability for any headaches or brain damage that you may get from it. It's a mess.
Okay, interesting. So any other questions coming from the audience for the Plex player or the HNL Ironworks?
Speak up, Maroon. Maybe just speak up, Maroon. She can't. She doesn't know. Go into broadcast.
Oh yeah, please go into broadcast mode. Yes.
Hi, Maroon. I have a question about about the Plex thing. So is it kind of like the old days on Roku with Plex Warflix? Is it kind of like that?
Unfortunately, I never actually made use of anything on the Roku side of things, so I'm not entirely positive, but probably yes.
There used to be a fan made kind of how do I like a custom made before Plex was on Roku. People just made their own version.
Yes, I would definitely describe this as basically a fan-made viewer for Plex servers.
Okay, I want to just point out someone watching from Twitch has commented that in broadcast mode we're peaking, but at normal volume we're being heard just fine. That may be some setting, just bringing that to everyone's attention here. So, yeah. Any more questions? Looking in case I miss your paw or tentacle, just like give me a little shout out. Okay, well, I guess that might conclude for the Q&A for today. So thanks for coming, everyone. And I want to thank the Twitch viewers for tuning in and letting us know about the volume there. And thank you definitely to the panelists, Nordwick, Jackson, Ikani, and Yeyinde. Amazing work. Like, just so cool. Very cool and very helpful, like the Plex player, and I'm definitely going to go check out and make my own sword for sure. That is brilliant, just amazing.
Yeah, I think you're not the only one there.
Yeah, that's just, it's stellar. Like, just that interactivity, yeah. And thank you to Carlos, Projectivity, and Jason for streaming today's event. And everyone make sure, like, keep an eye on the Neos Edgy channel in the Neos Discord for announcements of our next Neos Educators event. Thank you. Woo. Yeah. Oh,
Have a
cookies.
cookie.
Thank you. I will. Chocolate chip. Thanks so much. I'm gonna eat more cookies.